Resolved. The popular Christmas song, Mary Did You Know, is naive, condescending, and biblically ignorant. You're welcome, Mary. Sorry, I may have been a little more influenced than I thought by having judged that debate tournament at Jonathan's school. I'm not going to start every sermon with resolved, and I promise not to stand up here and debate myself either. But what's that, Kelly? Can you judge me? Yeah, I assume that was happening anyway. Everybody is judging me. But there is definitely a debate out there. And what's funny is when I wrote this sermon the other day, or when I decided this was going to be the topic, I thought the debate had sort of died down a little bit and we were all past that. And then just in the days immediately following, I saw it everywhere. Maybe that's just the internet snooping on me like usual. But no, it's still definitely out there. People saying, no, this is a terrible song. No, it's a great song. Or we should cancel it. Or we should sing it. Or whatever. What's that, Trish?
It's a terrible song.
Okay, Trish is on the... Okay. I'm not going to ask for a vote, by the way. You don't have to take sides on this. Some of you may not even be familiar with the song, so I'm just going to give you a couple of the lines right here. These are some key sort of representative lines. Mary, did you know that your baby boy will one day walk on water? Mary, did you know that your baby boy will save our sons and daughters? Did you know that your baby boy has come to make you new? This child that you've delivered will soon deliver you. Now, whoever you are, that's a clever turn of phrase, at least, the deliverance part. And it's you know, in some ways you could say it's a well-crafted song, but is it any good? Is it good? Is the message good? Does it make sense? And I know that some of us here come from traditions that have a very kind of purist view of Mary, that Mary was born from a virgin, and that she gave birth as a virgin. No scoffing, please. Rules of engagement, right? That she was born as a virgin, that she gave birth as a virgin, and even that she died as a virgin, or maybe that she didn't die, that she was assumed into heaven, the assumption of Mary. So that's a very, some would call that a high Marian view or a purist view of Mary. Now, of course, equating Mary's virginity with her purity, that's a whole other ball of wax. That's a whole other problem we don't have time to get into. We can talk about it at coffee hour if you want. But the notion that the church has developed that her virginity equals her holiness in some way, I'm not going to get into that. But there are others in this room who may have concluded that Mary was not even that special. I know some people are hurting right now as I'm saying this. Except for her faith. That maybe there wasn't any miracle involved, there wasn't any kind of special birth involved, but simply that she was chosen by God for her faith. Now, I do have a position on that, and on the virgin birth, and on Mary and all that, but we don't have any time for that either, so I'm not going to get into it. Nobody wants a 30-minute sermon in here. So, now one position about the lyrics of the song that's made the rounds on the internet is that the song is disrespectful to Mary. And there's a snarky parody of it, which I actually looked up on my own, and I was looking at it on my own before Mary Johnson posted it on Facebook. And this parody of the song is called Yes, I Freaking Knew. And it's like it's Mary's rebuttal. She's parodying the original song as a rebuttal to the song, saying, yes, I freaking knew. And that parody assumes that the lyrics of the original song are condescending and patronizing. And it's Mary responding with that, did I know? Well, I don't know. Did I have an angel come and visit me specially and tell me what was going to happen? And maybe I also had my cousin Elizabeth who prophesied over me, and we read that just now in the gospel. And that's the artist depiction you see on the cover of the bulletin there too. That very famous and very precious moment where Mary goes and stays with her cousin for a little bit, and Elizabeth prophesies over her. And even her own baby in her womb, who was John the Baptist in utero, rejoiced to be in the presence of the Messiah, also in utero. So, yeah, Mary's looking back at these moments and saying, yes, an angel told me, and yes, my cousin told me. And on top of that, look at the prophecies in Scripture. I mean, she is basically in the Magnificat in Mary's song, which we also read this morning. She is wholesale quoting the song of Hannah from 1 Samuel, where Hannah is singing and rejoicing over the birth of the son that she had longed for and that thought was impossible, this miraculous conception of Samuel. And so she sings this song in the book of 1 Samuel, and Mary knows this, and she's quoting that as she sings the Magnificat. And so there's further evidence that Mary knew what she was getting into. And that maybe this song is not giving her enough credit, right? So she's saying, I have Elizabeth, and I had Gabriel, and listen to my song that I sang. Yes, I freaking knew. That's Mary's rebuttal, coming from our perspective, of course. So Mary knew a lot. She knew the promise of the Messiah. She knew Isaiah is saying, for unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given. She was going into this with eyes wide open. Mary knew a lot, but she didn't know everything. But my question for you is Mary's knowledge really the point of the song? You might think so. It says, Mary, did you know? I mean, it puts knowledge right there in the title. But is it really exploring what knowledge Mary had and what awareness she had, or is it reflecting on what Jesus turned out to be? Because even though Mary's knowledge was as good as anybody else's, did she really know fully what was about to happen? And I think we can think that way in our own lives too. In fact, I invite you right now to think back on some special moment in your life. Think back to the birth of a child, or to the day that you married a special person, or the first day on a job, or the first day at a school, or in a new home, or a new city. You think back to those moments, and then you kind of fast forward and you say, what did I know? What did I know on that day? Yes, I knew that person I was marrying, or I knew the city I was moving into, or the job that I took. And I did those things based on the knowledge that I had. But did I really know what was about to happen? And I think that's why sometimes we watch those retrospective videos too, those slideshows on special days like weddings, or like funerals, or golden anniversaries, or graduation parties. And we look at the people in those pictures, in those slideshows. Sometimes those people are us. And we think, did you really know what was about to happen? Because all of our journeys include things that we would never have expected. And sometimes it's only things that we never would have expected. It goes very differently than we imagined. And that's not an insult to our knowledge. It's not about our intellect or about our awareness. That is just how life unfolds, and we've all had a chance to experience that. And I'll look at pictures of me in high school or in college, and I'll just look at my face and say, Ryan, did you know? Did you know what was about to happen? Did you know how your life was going to unfold over the next 15 or 20 or 25 years? The answer is no, I didn't know. And Jesus turned out to be pretty different than anybody could have expected too. Because we see, even when we look in this marvelous prayer, this Magnificat, that we cherish, we see incredible knowledge, we see incredible faith, but we don't see a perfect depiction of Jesus' actual messiahship. Mary was named Mary. Her name was Miriam or Mariam in Hebrew. And it's I'm not remembering the exact translation, but it's a name of resistance. It's a name of suffering under oppression. And that's why we have so many characters, female characters from the Gospels named Mary. You know, Mary of Magdalene and Mary of Bethany and Mary, the mother of Jesus. And even more, because so many parents were naming their daughters Mariam or Miriam because they were suffering. They were under this political oppression that they were so heartbroken over. That they felt like their faith and their people were a fraction of their former selves because of Rome and because of this constant heavy taxation and political oppression and having soldiers all around telling them what to do all the time. And they were longing and praying to God for an end to this so that they can be the people of faith that they believed God meant them to be. And Mary was part of that, and her Magnificat, her prayer, was part of that. And so we see her longing for a completely new social and political system where the mighty are cast down and the lowly are lifted up, and where the hungry are fed and the rich are sent away empty. She is asking for a reversal, for a revolution. So when the actual Jesus is born and grows up, she gets her first little surprise when he's 12, and he stays behind in Jerusalem as they travel, and because he had to be in his father's house, and she didn't expect that. And we see a little bit later, it's the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 12, I think, where Mary shows up with her other sons at Jesus, when Jesus is teaching and doing his miracles, and says, hey, can we borrow him back for a minute? I feel like he's kind of making a fool of himself. Mary was surprised. She didn't know exactly what to expect. She knew a lot. She knew as much as anybody else. But right along with her peers, she had to discover in real time the kind of Messiah, the kind of king, the kind of Savior that Jesus was turning out to be. Mary knew a lot, but she didn't know everything. She had to recognize at some point that there were going to be a lot of surprises. But that is where her faith kicked in. If there's one thing that I hope we can agree on, whether we consider ourselves high or low view of Mary, and whether we have a Marian devotion, we have rosaries, or whether we believe in the virgin birth or not the virgin birth, we have all kinds of different perspectives in this room. But one thing I hope we can agree on is the historic, magnificent nature of Mary's faith. She knew it was going to be a hard road. The angel came and told her, hey, you're going to have a baby, and there's not going to be any evidence that it belongs to your husband. And you know how that goes in your society. You know that people are not going to rejoice over this pregnancy. People will judge you. And when you have that moment with Elizabeth that's so joyful and so happy and so full of prophecy and hope, that's nice. But you know why she was there? She had to get out of there. And we have lots of stories in that, maybe fewer now than we used to, but even within our own memories, the way our culture has operated. When a young woman became pregnant and it was out of wedlock, what did she have to do? She had to disappear for a while. Go live with her aunt or something, right? Because that was the judgmental nature of our culture, and in some pockets it still is, and that's what Mary knew she was going to have to deal with. Mary knew that, and she knew it was going to be hard. And yet she said, yes. May it be with me as you have said. It is in that uncertainty that Mary's faith kicks in, because what is faith when you have total certainty? If you look back at those moments at the beginning of that job or the beginning of that marriage or whatever, what do you feel? Do you feel regret sometimes? Do you think maybe I wouldn't have made that choice if I'd known everything that was going to result from it? Maybe even when grieving over a loved one. There's no regret, but there's just deep, deep sadness that I invested so much love in this person. I put so much of my heart into that, and now it hurts. If I knew it was going to hurt this much when it ended, would I have invested myself in that person, in that relationship? But we begin with faith, and Mary began with faith. When the road got hard, it was her faith that kept her hanging on. She didn't walk away even when she struggled. Or maybe she didn't struggle. You don't have to even agree that she struggled, because I'm so thankful that we in this room do not have to agree, and we talked about this in the church history class that Mary led. Somebody dared me to mention you like 5 times in a sermon, so I think we're at 4. We talked about orthodoxy and about the Trinity and even about the virgin birth and all the different views of that and the Eucharist with transubstantiation. And we can take a moment of peace and a moment of joy to recognize that we don't have to all share a brain. We don't all have to come to the same conclusion and agree on our doctrine in order to worship together, in order to be a family together. But I think we can agree on Mary's faith. And I think we can be bolstered by that, and we can be inspired by that, because we've had a lot of twists and turns, even just throughout this year, 2024, haven't we? And there's no hint that that's going to stop. So if we're going to draw from the faith of Mary, if we're going to try to borrow that for ourselves, then hopefully we can face that uncertainty with one ironclad promise. The one that Mary knew she had, and the one that we know we have, and that is the promise that God is going with us. I mean, didn't the angel say to Mary to name the baby Jesus, and also Emmanuel, God with us? And Mary knew she didn't need any more promise than just that one. Whereas other people fell away when Jesus started going off in a different direction than they expected, Mary stayed, because she was prepared for all of those surprises and all of those twists and turns, as long as God is Emmanuel, is with us. And maybe if we let our faith, that faith of Mary, do the talking, then we can look back on these experiences throughout our lives, throughout our marriages, throughout our jobs, throughout our lives in this home or that home, or this church or that church. And we can see that we've never been alone. And that if we've never been alone, then maybe that means we'll never be alone. So as we enter the Christmas season and a new year and all of those seasons that follow, may we move forward with the faith of Mary and with her steadfast knowledge of just one thing, that we will not be moving forward alone. Amen.